Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast. As always, you guys know this podcast is presented by ScentLock. However, I want to talk about a different brand that is owned by Nexus Outdoors, and that is Whitewater Fish, Whitewater fishing gear. This stuff is absolutely phenomenal, guys. I am a pale white boy, so I've got to wear sun protection all the time, whether I'm out with the family at the beach or whether I'm at the water park. I've got to wear sun protection. So I've worn a lot of different stuff, and Whitewater does fishing gear and lightweight summer wear really, really well. So guys, head over to whitewaterfish.com and check out what I'm wearing is the Whitewater lightweight tech hoodie. I also wear the Whitewater long sleeve tech shirt a lot. Anytime I'm out in the sun, if I'm on a walk or a hike, I'm wearing this stuff to protect me from the sun, keeps me cool, keeps me dry. It's moisture wicking. It's odor eliminating. This stuff is phenomenal, guys. Go check out Whitewater gear at whitewaterfish.com. Guys, I am joined today by Thomas Krick from Identical Draw. These guys are great. These guys are phenomenal at land management. So me and Thomas, we jump into how do we create the best property that we can for whitetails. So we look at buying a new piece of ground. We use the example of 40 acres. And what are we going to immediately start doing to make that ground better for whitetails? What are we doing in the long run? What are we planting? What are we taking out? What are we doing on a yearly basis, on a monthly basis? What are we doing nutritional wise, water? What are we doing to create the best ground possible for deer? It's a phenomenal episode. We also dive into kind of the natural progression that hunters should take. Should they start with a rifle and move to a bow? Should they start with a bow and move to a rifle? Guys, it's a really good episode. It's packed full of information to help you make your ground the best possible you can for your whitetails. I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
I'm very picky about the nonprofits that I will support. I look into them a lot. I don't just jump in and support anybody that says we're a nonprofit. I met a friend of mine. His name is Jim Mesh, and he runs a memorial fund, a scholarship in his brother's name, the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship. And what they do, they have a passion for getting kids involved in outdoors. So they host these events around the country to get kids introduced to hunting, but also to raise money for their scholarship fund, which is the John V. Mesh Scholarship. And what that is that's a scholarship that if any student is going into a field of conservation study, they can apply for this scholarship, and it's a substantial scholarship. That's another thing. If they say we're a nonprofit and we do all this, and then they give, $1,000 scholarship, then you're like, well, where does the rest of the money go? But they give a very substantial scholarship to a student every year looking to go into a conservation field of study. So guys, maybe you are a student and you're studying some field of conservation. I would encourage you to apply for the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship, but also I would encourage you, everybody, to support this nonprofit scholarship fund, whether it's through a one-time donation, a monthly donation, or attending one of their events, or buying one of the things they have on auction at these events. Support a company that's supporting our rights as hunters by furthering our conservation efforts by supporting students who are going into a conservation field of study. Guys, go check out the John V. Mesh Memorial Scholarship at johnvmesh.org. All right, Thomas, so before we get too much further into this, give me a recap on you guys' spring. Did you guys go on any spring bear hunts, turkey hunts? What all did you guys do this spring?
A lot of turkey hunts. I think we might have hit 5 to 6 states. Did some new ones like Oklahoma, but did the Wisconsin, hunted Nebraska. That's our home state. Didn't hunt Nebraska as much as we normally do, but the time we did hunt, it was great. We killed like 3 birds in like 9 hours or something. So we made good time of our trip. Iowa as well. That was my second year hunting Iowa. So yeah, we bounced around quite a bit. Haven't done the spring bear thing yet, but it's like every year I'm getting closer and closer to doing it. So,
Oh, it's so much better than turkeys, dude.
do you go out quite a bit?
I try to go. So what I do, and for sake of my wife and kids, really, I try to do every other year. Go on a bigger spring bear hunt. So last year I went on a spring bear hunt. This year I actually had one booked. I know it was back-to-back years, but I had one booked only because I had to work an event in Utah. So I'm like, well, I'm going to be, 3 hours from where I hunt in Idaho. I might as well swing up and hunt for a couple days. But then the event got canceled, so I didn't go on the bear hunt. So I love spring bear hunting, though, man. I'm not a giant turkey hunting guy. I mean, I'll go once a year. It's one of those deals where when a buddy invites me and wants to hunt, I'll go out and shoot a bird. But I just don't get fired up about it. So I love spring bear hunts. I spend a lot of time in the spring hog hunting because to me, that's the best way. I tell people all the time, that's the best way to refine your skills, test your equipment, build confidence. That's a great tool because if you miss one hog, just keep walking for a while. You'll find more, So that's what I do a lot of.
Gotcha. Yeah. So is that a spring bear hunt, a rifle hunt for you?
In Idaho, definitely.
Yeah.
It's just, well, especially because, well, I say that if we're going spot and stalk, like so I either hunt in the Boise National Forest or I hunt with my outfitter there in McCall, Idaho. You can bait in Idaho. So my outfitter baits. So if we're hunting over a bait barrel, it's absolutely a recurve hunt. If I'm spotting and stalking in the Boise National Forest, it's absolutely a rifle hunt. The success rate with a bow there is like 2%. It's just insanely hard. The first time I ever went to the Boise National Forest, I took my bow and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, you're never going to, this is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
And so that first trip, I actually ended up, my buddy said, well, dude, this is the closest we're getting to this bear. And it was like day 8. And so I just grabbed his rifle and shot it. But yeah, that's definitely a rifle hunt for me if it's spot and stalk.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And that's what I would definitely do. It seems like it's just a dark timber. Like you might just get a quick glimpse of a bear kind of thing, a couple 100 yards away. So
yeah, for sure. Now, if you're hunting over bait, especially in the spring, dude, it's almost like pick your color. I mean, they're trying to hit that bait so much coming out of hibernation that it's literally like just watching a parade of bears, and it's like, oh, I don't like that color. Let's wait for another color, So
yeah,
that's definitely a bow hunt.
Yeah, nice. It's on the list to do. We'll be out there.
Just so everybody knows, I am incredibly excited. Identical Draw and myself, we both kind of have a special recurve project in the works with bears, both individual projects, but they're both going to be really, really cool. So stay tuned. I'm not sure of the timeline on theirs. I know mine will come about mid-August. So stay tuned because you are going to want to watch Identical Draw's process. You're going to want to hear the process, and I'll have them back on and we can talk about their process and everything they went through, but it is going to be really stinking cool. So make sure and stay tuned for that this summer.
Yeah, it'll be an awesome thing when we can kind of talk about it more. But it's something that Nate and I have had in the works and thought of for a couple of years, and finally going to be able to make it happen. So we're excited.
And you guys just went down to Gainesville, didn't you?
Yeah, that was our first time down there, and it was awesome seeing it all made. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, like, made in the USA, a lot of the bear stuff down there. So it was great to see the recurves being assembled, and got a little sneak peek at what's coming this fall. So it was great to meet everybody and see the facility.
Yeah. No, I am, there's two things I want to hit on, man. Bear archery is made right here, if you consider Florida the United States. No, I'm just kidding. But made right here in Florida. And those, what I have come to love about recurves is, even though bear is quote unquote a mass produced recurve, they're not custom bows, built for you to your specs, but they're mass produced, but yet those bows are still hand sanded. Every grip is hand sanded down. Every tip is hand sanded. And so that's why, like, if you pick up my Kodiak Hunter and you feel it and you're like, I don't really like that grip, just pick up another Kodiak Hunter and the grip will be a bit different. Now, of course, they're trying to get them pretty close, but man, I've picked Kodiak Hunters up that I love way more than mine because it's got more of a narrow grip on it. But all of those grips are hand sanded down. So each one's going to be a little bit different. And that's an incredible facility down there, man. I encourage everybody, even if you're not a bear guy, if you're just an archery lover, I encourage you to go check it out because it's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. Like, just everywhere you walk in there, like you see like Fred Bear's stamp everywhere. Like,
yeah, equipment
he used, and like people that were even around when Fred was there. Like, it's just it's pretty awesome to just walk around the same facility, same office that Fred had, and just like there's a legit wood shop. Like this stuff is being, like you said, hand sanded. Like, it's pretty awesome that it just, like, one guy does this, one guy does this. Like, they've got their files out there filing down the wood, and it's pretty crazy to see the whole process.
Did you get to meet Neil when you were down there?
Yeah. Yep. We met Neil.
Yeah. I don't know like 100% how to verify this, but he's like the last student of Fred Bear. And so, you know, he's literally like the last living guy that was trained and taught by Fred Bear himself on how to make bows. And so he's literally like the last Jedi, I view him as. But I'm really excited because he's going to be a large part of the special process that the recurve project that I'm going to get to work on with him. And so I'm really excited about that, just to be able to say, like, I got to work alongside Fred Bear's students. Like, that's so cool to be able to say, man. People, the amount of history that's found in that place is just unreal.
Yeah, we were fortunate to be able to sit down with Neil and interview him a little bit. And the guy, you don't have to spend more than 10 seconds with him to understand how much he loves it and like how deep it runs like through him. And he's he's super passionate about it still, and is really the legs to that company down there. And Caleb, the marketing guy at Bear, some listeners might know him. He says that he's the archery industry's like best kept secret. Like,
yeah,
you don't
100%.
like, not a lot of people know about Neil, but like he is the most knowledgeable like recurve trad guy that exists today. You know, he's unbelievable.
Yeah. I've heard Caleb say that on several occasions, and he truly is.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to watch Neil. Like, if you watch him at ATA, or like one of the big traditional shoots in PA, if you watch him, he kind of just sits back, man, and just watches and just takes it all in. And people are walking by this guy, and I'm like, if you just knew the wealth of knowledge that could come out of this guy's mouth, if you were willing to ask, it would be insane. But he just sits back and watches and you know, smiles, and then you hear him do, you know, like he'll pick up a bow and do a introduction to the bow or something. You're like, wait a second, he knew way too many details on that bow. Like, he knew the inner workings of that bow. And it's because he designed it and made it himself. Like, it's just, he is really something special. And I'm excited to get to do this project with him, guys. So make sure, I promise you, you're going to want to tune in to Identical Draws process through their special thing that they're doing. And come mid-August, you're going to want to tune in and listen to the interview with Neil. So,
Sweet.
Well, Thomas, we went down a big rabbit hole there, but what I really wanted to talk to you about, what I think you guys do and do really, really well, is content. Your content's phenomenal, but your land management. You don't see a lot of guys get so passionate about land management, which I love. Dude, the amount of people that I'm like, they'll call me and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm out putting up tree stands, or I'm out running cameras or trimming. And they're like, dude, it's 107 degrees outside. And I'm like, yeah, but what else are you going to do like this? So I love seeing you guys dive into the whole process. So let's start at the beginning. Let's just say person A buys a new 40-acre piece. What do you guys start doing to really tackle that piece of property? Because what I like about you guys is it seems as though you guys don't just care about the deer. You care about the overall health of the property. And that's what I really enjoy about watching you guys do what you do. So somebody buys a brand new piece of 40 acres, or they lease it out, and the landowner gives them full reign. You guys just go have fun. What do you guys start doing to really tackle the health of that property?
That's a loaded question, but it gets me jacked up just thinking about it. Like it's really become a huge passion of ours. We've only our family only owns this 80 acres, and we've had it for now this will be our fourth fall that we'll be hunting it and managing it all year round. But gosh, if somebody bought a little 40 acres and they had full reign and they wanted to make this thing like just a wildlife mecca, there's a couple things that I'm doing right away. There's a couple things I'm not doing right away. What we chose to do year one was do some basic good management things, but really see how the deer have been using that property. Like it's just became yours, but deer have been using that property for so many years, and they know how they want to use that naturally. So before, like, it's super tempting to get out the brush hog and be like, I want a path here, I want a path here. I'd say if you're able to, it depends when you get access to the property, but see how the deer really want to use that naturally. I'm doing some management things right away, if depending on when you get it during the year, but like if possible, like I'm absolutely burning. And one thing that we had some NDA guys like Matt Roth come over to our property. If you can afford to have somebody like that come and check out your property and just give you good insight about what to do, I highly recommend it. Even if you think like you've got a pretty good background, you've got some good knowledge on what you want to do, it's always good to get a fresh set of eyes that like are professionals in that. But the first thing he said to do, which we're still working on just because our 80 is so thick, it's unbelievably thick with old timber, so it's been difficult, is he said first thing is path around the perimeter. And now I completely understand why. Like, one, travel to be able to get a UTV or be able to access walking wise. If you have a smaller chunk like we have 80 acres, like you're going to use your perimeter to access with certain wind directions. And when he first said that, I was like, okay, like we'll get sure, like I understand that, but it helps so much on the management side of things, because then you've got your natural fire break, and it's hard to argue that like fire is the number one thing that's going to help your property. So if I have a new 40 acres, I'm absolutely burning as much as I can year one. Just scouting how those deer are going to use that property. And then future years, I'm doing TSI work during the off season. We've done that. We've probably done timber stand improvement on over half our, probably 40, 50 acres. We've done some TSI work, whether that's girdling or completely taking down trees. It's such a long process, because most of the times, like, you can't just start dropping trees. Like, that's just not how the timber usually lies out. It's a girdle a couple of trees, let them fall naturally, and then you have the space to be able to drop stuff. But yeah, TSI work, fire, planting one or two food plots perhaps that first year as well. And then we've gone into the more long-term stuff. Like, we put in acre and a half, 2 acres of like switchgrass, because we just want to make some really good bedding for them. And we're kind of doing some bigger stuff now, knowing how the deer use the property, how we can hunt it best. So year one, I'm saying just like let the property do its thing, hunt it put up a lot of trail cameras, and hunt it how the deer want to use it. So
now let's take a jump back to burning real quick.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of guys don't understand the benefit of that, or maybe they understand it, but they don't they don't fully know how to perform it. Like myself, I don't have any property that I can burn currently. So I don't currently practice burning because, well, first off, the farmers would kill me if I just started burning whatever I wanted to burn when I wanted to burn it. But so A, when do you burn? B, how often do you burn? And C, what are all the benefits of burning?
Yeah. So I'm not a professional, but I've just done it on our own property for the last 4 years and watched a lot of things on it. When to burn. The popular time to burn is during like what's considered the dormant season. So everything's kind of based on humidity and the weather and wind and stuff like that. But anytime from you can get some even in January through I guess if we're talking dormant season, that's kind of starting to peter out mid-April, and then the green up's happening. But you can technically keep burning if the conditions are right. You can keep burning through like the beginning of summer. It just depends if you want to burn when like turkeys are nesting and fawns are dropping and stuff like that. That's why a lot of people stop. But so yeah, that's there's also the kind of the late growing season burn that people will do in August and September, but it's just based on if there's enough fuel on the ground to be able to get a fire to eat up a lot of that leaf litter, and there's still a decent amount of green up. But a lot of that green up isn't holding near as much moisture during that time, so you can still get a burn in. Dormant season burn is more of a cleanup. It's getting a bunch of old leaf litter, and it's pushing back some like plant species that you don't want that might just be kind of a year-round thing, like multiflora rose. Like it definitely kicks those back, inhibits the growth for at least a year or two, as often as you can burn. Actually, Meat Eater did a really cool film. I think it was with Ryan Callahan. You can see that they burnt. He was down on a Florida property that does a bunch of prescribed fires, and they've been burning one piece, I think, for like I want to say like 40 to 50 years in a row or something out, like something crazy like that. And then they've been burning one piece every year, like one piece every 2 years, one piece every 3 years, and one piece every 4 years. You can just see the difference in growth. A lot of reason why we burn, and we do it every year. We'll burn all our brome, and then as much as we can get in the timber. It just depends. You have to have pretty low humidity days, a decent wind, and some of those days are considered like the red flag warning. So you technically can't get a burn permit, but inside of the timber, you need days that are like close to that, because you need when you're in the timber, you're getting less wind, and you just need as much wind as you can get through that timber to be able to push a fire. And those in the timber fires are really the game changing fires, because that's where most of your like woody shrubs that you're trying to get rid of are. So what else did you ask me, Dylan? What else should I like benefits of a burn? We do it a lot for wildlife. They say that if you can't burn, like having like cows in the pasture is a similar thing, because they keep the grass super low, and that's also like a part of the reason why I think our turkey hunting is so good in Northeast Nebraska. And it really hasn't seen a decline in the last couple of years, because there's so much grazing up there. That's basically like all these acres getting prescribed fire every year, because it's being cut back, and it's the perfect height for all these poults to be able to walk through, and hen nesting ground and stuff like that. So we burn. I always say like we really manage our 80 acres for the turkeys, because it's kind of hurting in our area of Kansas, but it does so much for the deer, for all the other wildlife that are using. We have quail on our 80 as well. So it cuts everything back. A more open forest floor that animals can walk through, maneuver better. All sorts of height of vegetation is great for especially turkeys and stuff like that. And then you're also just getting soft forbs that are much easier to eat for the deer and much more preferred. So a lot of reasons that's kind of like the non-professional take on burns and why we do it, but it's a whole thing that once you get into it,
it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you guys mentioned taking out trees. What kind of trees, like when you walk onto that new 40 acres, what kind of tree is it that you see and you're like, yeah, I'm getting rid of you? Like you got to go.
Yeah. So every area across the U.S. is going to have different tree species, but I'll just take if it was a 40 acres that had similar timber to our 80 acres. There's two thoughts here. It's like what does the tree do for wildlife, and then like is there enough? Like could it make me money in the lumber market? So like depending on how those questions are answered, we get some trees we get rid of right away, or like hedge, honey locust. If the cedars are too thick, we're getting rid of cedars. We're getting rid of crappy walnut because deer don't eat walnuts. We're getting rid of some hackberry. We might hinge cut some hackberry. We're hinge cutting some elm. There's certain trees that if you cut down and let them sprout, the deer will go nuts and eat the sprouts. So, but if we just want nothing of the tree, we'll cut it down or girdle it, and then you gotta always treat the stump, or you're gonna have that tree growing back super fast. It's pretty crazy how resilient some of these trees are. Even if you treat the stump, they wanna come back and make a fight for it. But trees that we want to try to keep around, I mean, yeah, your classic oaks. Again, I said remove some cedars, but we also want to keep some cedars around. But you really want to go for that like if we're looking at a grassy hillside with some cedars, you want like maybe a 30% coverage. Like you don't want this thing choked out because there's no life underneath. If you ever look under like a cedar belt, like there's no life that exists under there. So you want to make sure that there's not too many cedars. I'm trying to think what else. Ash, they'll eat the sprouts coming out of the stump of ash. So biggest thing has been kind of making sure our oaks aren't too crowded. Crowded oaks won't produce as well. So we'll actually take down an oak or two if it's too crowded. But yeah, we love a good oak stand.
Yeah, my one of my buddies just this last year, we went out to put up cameras, and he was telling me on the way there, he's like, yeah, this place, the floor of the forest was just barren because there was so much coverage. And he's like, so last year I cut down a whole bunch of trees. And he's like, I'm really anxious to see what happened to the forest floor. And like, that never even dawned on me. And we go out there, especially here in Kansas, because you just don't think of like incredibly thick woods, you know? And so we go out there and it was just all green. I'm talking like knee-high green. And I was just like, wow, dude, you made a massive difference. Threw up a camera, and sure enough, dude, the deer are using that like crazy. And and I was just like, man, that never would have even dawned on me to like, just to get the sun in here. And maybe that's my simple-minded when it comes to management. But, you know, those guys, you're that type of person. You just think differently. You think about, you know, the management of that property as a whole. And you know, I think if myself included, but I think if more hunters would think about those things, like we would have these better properties. And sure enough, man, my buddy did that, and that property has just turned into something special. My son also got poison ivy all over him from that piece of ground. But is it true that deer actually like poison ivy?
Dude, they love it. It's like it's a preferred food, and we have that same issue because it's all over our 80, and I get it like once or twice a year, every year. And we want to spray some of it. Like we'll spray it on some paths, but I mean they'll eat the crap out of it.
That's awesome. I mean, you just never you never think about that type of thing because again, it's like I want to get rid of it because it affects me in a negative way.
Right.
I'm not allergic to it, so I've never worried about it. But people are they think about I don't want to get poison ivy every time I want to go turkey hunt or put up cameras or hang new stands, and so they want to spray it and kill it. And normally, if I'm thinking about the properties that I've had access to over my lifetime, most of the time guys kill it before they can realize the deer like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most of the time guys want to get it out from around their stands and stuff before they realize, man, the deer actually were eating that.
Yeah. What gets us, and I think the reason I always get it is because that poison ivy just vines up the tree. And even when it's not leafed out, if you get that on you, or like usually I think what happens to me is I cut it with a saw if I'm dicing up a tree and I'm moving the lumber, and then I'm like wiping sweat off my face. And I'm like, I wasn't like that. I think that was getting me like once or twice. And then I realized like no more wiping my face with my glove like that would always screw me over.
Yeah. Yep. Well, what's funny is I was videoing some of this, and my son had poison ivy, and it was just like a scratch down at both sides of his face, just like that. And you could almost see the fingerprints where it was.
Yeah.
And I was videoing some of us. I was doing some tips for scent lock on summer properties. And so I was videoing this, and I put the camera on my son, and he was trying to say woodpecker, and he kept messing up. And he gets frustrated, and he just goes, oh, and rubs his fingers down his face. And my wife said, you idiot, that right there on camera is when he got the poison ivy on his face. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. Yeah. What we've done now is every time before we leave after like a big day of land management or like hanging stands or something, is we take a really hot shower. And I think that is actually, if you can get those oils off of you, or like if you can just like not let them sit, I think that helps a ton. And I think I was my last trip down there, I definitely had poison ivy everywhere, but I didn't get any because I did that pretty quickly after I was in it all. So that's one tip that's helped me avoid it a little bit. Yeah,
for sure. So what kind of trees are you guys adding? Like when you look at a property, what I mean, you have to look at what's there. If like you said, if there's a bunch of oaks, you're not going to plant oaks. But what kind of trees do you want for your deer?
Yeah. Gosh, there's like, we don't always look at adding trees as like for like a food source or any sort of thing like that. And talking to the land managers we've had out there, they're like, there's just so much food out here. Like if you want to plant trees for like a legacy thing, go ahead. But it's just such a long process if you're not Bomar planting like 100 apple trees in his food plot. Like what we'll do is we've planted some oaks out there. We planted some persimmon, and that's basically it. We have so much to work with already. And there's also like a lot of natural seeds in the seed bank, the soil. So it's kind of just come down to like, what do you want to do with your property? Do you want to plant trees? Like we don't have any maples out there. And like, do we want to add maples out here? That's something we've always thought about doing. But yeah, we kind of just when it comes down to trees, it's like what trees do we want to maybe potentially hunt in down the road? Or like what trees we want our kids to potentially hunt in. Our field edge for our main food plot is just crappy timber. It's honey locust and hedge, so it's very crappy to hang in. So we're like, let's plant some oaks and persimmon along this edge, and way down the line, my kids could potentially hunt in it, and my grandkids could hunt in it. So it'll just be a lot better field edge than what we have now. So when it comes to adding trees, it's a long-term process usually, but it just kind of comes down to what do you want to do.
So you don't add any fruit trees mainly because you don't need any extra food sources. But if a guy was to get a piece of ground and there's not a ton of natural food sources, do you recommend adding fruit trees?
You could.
Or do you recommend going another route?
Yeah, I like it's not a bad it's not a, like a also like it's not like a bad thing to supplement. Like you might as well plant some trees if you can. Um, if you can buy them a little bit older, so like you're not waiting. If you can buy a 15-foot tree and get it in there, then I mean you're gonna have benefits much sooner than if you buy little saplings or something. So, um, but when it comes to food, I'd say there's quicker ways to do it, and that's like cutting the timber and like letting all that natural stuff come up. Like you're gonna have deer in there so much faster and hitting that stuff so much harder than the mass that might be produced from a fruit tree.
Now, do you guys do any kind of supplication? I'm sorry, supplementation for your deer? Any kind of minerals or anything like that?
Yeah, in Kansas, obviously legal to bait and run supplements and mineral. We
Maybe
run mineral.
they're trying to pass a new law. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did hear about that. How are they going to regulate
So
that?
we'll see.
That'll be interesting.
I don't know. Because they say it's anything that makes a deer congregate in one area. So water, but it's like, how big does that water source have to be? How big does that food source have to be? I mean, if it's a pond, a pre-existing pond that, isn't big, but it's a pool of water. Well, how do you say that that's wrong? Because it's natural. Yeah. It's just, I mean, it might only be a 10-foot wide, hole in the ground that holds water, but that's still going to congregate them in a pretty small area. So I don't know, man. That was my biggest question. Or how big does a food plot have to be? I don't know.
Yeah, we even though we're in Kansas, we've just we grew up in Nebraska, a no bait state, and we have never run bait through the season. And our neighbors think we're crazy. Like everybody we talk to thinks we're crazy. We just we don't need to. We love seeing the deer move through it naturally, and they do every year. Even during we'll run supplement mineral throughout the winter, spring, summer, because just for trail cam pics. Nutritionally, they don't need any of it. They can, we talked to actually Doug Dern quite a bit about it, because he's all big on the CWD, and although we don't have that where we're at in Kansas, supplementing is definitely something that we're actually we're working towards getting away from it, just because deer don't need it, and it can just sprout disease. But yeah, I don't know. We just really want those trail cam photos mid to late summer, and that's the reason we're doing it now.
Yeah. So what kind of supplements do you run to get those pictures?
Yeah, so we'll put we used to work with a company called Next Level Deer Supplements, and they make great products. We still run some of their supplements. They make a good mineral too, but we're usually, we have some specific mineral sites, but then we'll also just run some of the pellets, maybe mixed with some corn, and basically the corn helps it just feed through the feeder better. But that's basically what we'll do in one or two spots.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. So have you ever tried, I mentioned water, and that's something that on one of my pieces of ground, particularly this year, I'm running water, because see what happened was, so 2021, the place was just incredible. I mean, deer everywhere, big bucks everywhere. 2022 comes around, and I put out a trail camera, probably this time of year, July, and I ran it all the way through the end of the year. And when I say 3 trail cameras is what was on the property, and I saw one forky all year long, and I'm like, what in the world? What happened from 2021 to 2022? And I'm trying to think about did somebody build a house on the backside of this I don't know about or something? I'm thinking about all these things, and the other guy, the guy that owns the property next to me, is very particular. So I wasn't gonna go on his ground to look at anything, but I finally run into him at a gas station, and he said, "Yeah, dude, my pond was bone dry all year long." And so I like that was the only source of water anywhere near those deer. And so I was just like,
Really?
well, now I know why my property sucked. And so I have started running water tanks on that property. Have you ever done any kind of water tanks?
I know people in Kansas that have like a water tank is like a big pile of bait. Like it is nuts. The deer that come into water tanks. We're fortunate to have a creek that comes like all the way north and south through our ground. That's like even during dry years, it's got water in it. So it's harder to get deer to like to basically have some water, like a specific water source for them to get trail cam photos. But we run so many trail cameras along the creek because they're always using it as travel and stuff like that. So
Gotcha. I'm new to water holes, and I was just kind of working this through my mind. I'm like, well, how big does it need to be? How do you keep it from not just getting nasty because it's stagnant water? And do you bury it or just set it on top? And I mentioned it on one podcast, and I had a very successful hunter, one of my mentors, if you will. He's killed like 4 deer over 190 with a recurve. I mean, just incredible hunter. And he started sending me a bunch of photos of deer at watering holes. And he's like, it absolutely works in Kansas and you need to do it. And he just had like the black barrels that you put out for your cows sitting on top of the ground, didn't bury them or anything. And I'm like, well, how does that not just get disgustingly, green and full of algae because it's just, a stagnant little pool of water. And so I'm just kind of still working through how to successfully do water holes in my head.
Yeah, no, I've heard people, I feel like it's becoming more popular to find water to hunt over, even if you're hunting public somewhere. But I've heard, especially in like central and western Kansas, people have such success hunting over water.
Now I've already learned a trail camera tip for that though. If you put a trail camera on the water hole, put it high and pointing down into the watering tank. That way you can not only see the deer, but you can make sure that there's still water in your water tank without having to go out and check it all the time. Just as the cell camera pictures come in, you can see, oh man, that there's no more water in there. I need to add water. And you don't have to go out there and check the water source all the time. You can see down into the tank from your camera angle.
Yeah. I know those guys that just run those huge giant tanks in the back of their truck. They pull up to it and just let it flow. And because those deer will just run through that water.
Yeah. Now the benefit of this ground I'm talking about, probably 200 yards from where I want to put water tanks, there is a water faucet with I could just run a water hose and just crank it up. And it's my in-laws, so I don't care about cranking their water bill up. So that'll be perfect for the piece of ground because I can just run a water hose out there and turn it on. And
that's perfect.
Screw it into the bottom of the tank and turn it on and then turn it back off. And when it gets low, just do it again. I mean, so I'm excited about it, man. I think it'll make a big difference out there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Next time I'm on, give me an update there. I want to see how it is for you.
I will. Yeah. Cool. When we come on to do our recurve project episode, I'll share that. Cause I did hold back a little bit this week. I was like, I'm going to go and work on that piece of ground a little bit. And then the last 2 days it was like 109 and I'm like, I'll probably wait. So I'll be out there as soon as it cools off just a bit.
Yeah. We used to do so much summer work, but now it's like we're basically like ready for the season, like the end of March. Like we do like all of our work during the off season and then just kind of hang it up for the summer, stay off of it. Maybe get there like once or twice a month, see how things are doing, check some cams, and then it's go time. Yeah.
What do you guys got planned this fall? Any big hunts?
Yeah, we've got a busy, like it's one of those things like where we like drew a lot of tags, like we were lucky, but it's just it's like a busy fall. Nate and I both have kids, so we're always battling like how much time we can really be gone and keep the home life happy. So but we're starting out. Nate drew a good archery elk tag. We've actually got I had the tag last year, the most insane hunt I've ever had. Like I told him, it might be like our most action-packed episode we've ever dropped. It's not live yet, but I think it's going to be live Monday, so people listening can tune into that. So he got that archery elk tag. It's a Colorado tag. I'm heading to Idaho on an archery tag that I got. Been to this unit before, killed a buck there. It's not like a super high deer density unit, but there's good bucks around, so we'll have to work for it. But we should find some deer. And then late September, going with some buddies that actually we met through our new hunter program. They were the first guys that we actually took out back in 2020. We're hunting with them in Wisconsin. That'll be our first time hunting deer in Wisconsin. So that'll be fun. Then little break home, and we're going to South Dakota. Drew those archery tags as well. Nate and I got lucky. We both drew Kansas. We technically have one landowner tag, but just with how it's getting harder to draw that tag as non-resident, so we're like, let's both just go into the non-resident draw, thinking that we won't both draw, but we both drew, which is fine. We'll definitely take that. And then I actually pulled my first ever Colorado rifle tag. It's actually going to be my first rifle tag ever. We always grew up bow hunting, so I've never even killed a deer with a rifle. I've been on many hunts where other people do. I've mentored people that have killed deer with rifles. But that'll be my first rifle hunt ever. Colorado elk. November we try to dedicate to Kansas, a little bit in Nebraska. We've got some Nebraska muzzleloader hunts. The one tag I didn't draw was Iowa. That's fine. I think by this time in the fall I'll be getting to my point where I feel I've got a pretty full freezer, hopefully. And but yeah, we like states like Oklahoma that's kind of like a last minute, like, are we gonna maybe dip over there? North Dakota is kind of always on the will we head up there for a short trip, but yeah, it's going to be here before we know it, and we've got just another busy year, so I can't wait.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Idaho is one of those states where non-resident bear tags are so cheap that you should always have one in your pocket.
Yeah.
And guys don't believe me, and they'll be on deer hunts or elk hunts, and they're like, dude, I had a bear come in at 10 yards. I should have bought a bear tag. I'm like, yeah, I told you should have. And so definitely have a bear tag. I mean, because they're like $180 for a non-resident bear tag. So I think everybody should have one in their pocket all the time if they're in Idaho.
Do you know what the fall season is for your bear?
It pretty much runs in correlation with the elk season, because last year when I was on my elk hunt in Idaho, I bear hunted too. Idaho bear fall season.
Trying to
August 30th through November 18th.
Okay.
Just long.
Yep. Trying to think if I've ever seen black bear in that unit.
Oh wait, hold on. That's for one unit. That's a 2 bear.
Oh. Probably.
Oh, here we go. No fall season.
It depends unit
Yeah,
to unit.
I mean, October-ish, middle of October through end of September looks like for most units. Yeah, so October through September.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Some just October, but some starting in August, going all the way. Yeah. August through. Yeah.
Gotcha.
A
That
couple
might
of
be
these
something
units like open August, shut down mid-September, open again October.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of the time in there.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fun, man. And I just love bears. I just have a little bear addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to do it. I want to do it bad. And it's just like, tags are easy to get, and it seems like it's a pretty fun hunt, and it's like gives you something to do all, like if you go out during the spring too. So
Oh crap, I messed up again. I told you wrong again. I was looking at the dates for dogs being prohibited.
oh,
Okay, looks like every single unit for just fall hunting is August 30th through October 31st or November 30th. So you either have August
okay,
to the end of October or August through the end of November. That's what it looks like.
that makes sense.
Depending on the unit, you either have August, end of August through the end of September, or August through the end. Or I'm sorry, August through the end of October, or August through the end of November.
Nice. It's a pretty liberal season.
I was looking at dog dates. I doubt you have bear dogs, but maybe you do.
Nope, do not.
Cool, man. Well, so which hunt are you most looking forward to this year?
Man, it's a good question. Probably either the
rifle
Idaho
hunt.
mule deer, that rifle hunt. I mean that it just seems like I've never hunted elk during that time of the year, and it'll be a first thing for like a new thing. I love doing a new hunt every year, so it's got to be that. And just because I've never killed an elk, I've been extremely close many times. So I just feel like that the tag is I've got a higher chance if we hunt it like we have in the past. Like I should be able to get a decent bull on the ground. So
Yeah. That's exciting, man. I'm anxious to hear about it.
Yep.
I do find it interesting that you've never rifle hunted before. So
yeah,
being and you guys do a lot for new hunters, especially with newhunter.org. There's two schools of thought there. You know, kind of the old school of thought is like you're going to start with a stinking stick bow, and you got to earn your right to hunt with a compound, and you've got to earn your right to hunt with a rifle. That's kind of that old school way of thinking, you know. Whereas the new way of thinking is more of like, well, let's get them started as young as we can with a rifle, and then when they get, you know, more confident, we can move them to a bow and or move them to a crossbow, and then move them to a bow, and then if they want to hunt with a recurve, they can. So it's almost like a flip flop for the new younger generations. What do you think about that? I mean, what do you think? Being a dad, but also, you know, working a lot with new hunters. What do you think about the natural progression of hunting? What do you think it should be?
I think it's easier. Like just before this podcast, I was in the backyard shooting the apprentice bow with my almost 4-year-old. I think like as far as kids getting into it and new hunters, I think it's very important to know both. I feel like it is easier and less intimidating to start out with a bow or crossbow. Like I'm actually a big crossbow proponent for when people are starting out. Now, I do think that I would be okay with hearing like a change to certain crossbow regulations with the season timing that they have. Just because, I mean, at the end of the day, it is much easier than a compound archery hunt. But I'd love them for getting kids shooting and getting new hunters shooting as well, just because it's not intimidating. It's extremely easy to be hitting bullseye out to 40 yards, like after a couple shots. So I don't know. I think like I wish I would have been introduced to rifle hunting, and I didn't have like it's still intimidating to me just because I haven't like I know the process of rifle hunting and how to mount a scope, how to do all the rifle stuff, but I've never shot a deer with a rifle. I mean, I've muzzle loader hunted and done that whole thing, but I just think as a hunter, my take is learn as much as you can, and like don't the more you know, rifle wise, muzzle loader, archery wise, just the better hunter you are. So I've always felt like a little gap in my hunting just because I haven't done like the rifle thing a ton. So I'm excited to really dip into it, and I know I'm gonna like it. I'm not against rifle hunting at all. I've been applying the last couple of years for good rifle tags that I know I'm hoping to get down the line. But the opportunity with archery is amazing, and something about getting in tight with the bow has just kind of kept me on the bow side of things.
Yeah. Well, I get that question a lot of like, I'm trying to get my kid into hunting. What should the natural progression be? And I'm like, whatever they want it to be. You know, like don't force your kid to hunt with a rifle if they're like, but Dad, I want to hunt with the bow. That's okay. That's fine, son. Well, you're going to have to wait a couple more years because your draw weight's not heavy enough to hunt with a bow yet. And if that's what they want to do, so be it. You know, if they want to hold out and start with a bow, great. If they want to jump in, I mean, don't make them say, well, son, you've got to hunt with a bow because that's how men do it.
Right.
If they want to shoot a deer with a rifle, let them shoot a deer with a rifle and then work them into that bow. I mean, you know, I am more of the, you know, and I see it from both ways because, you know, working for Pope and Young, I get to rub elbows with a lot of the old school guys, and they're like, kids shouldn't get a rifle first off. Like they have to go out and earn their keep before they get a rifle. And, you know, hearing them talk about it, I understand that field of thought, and I understand the new field of thought of like, let's get them started as soon as we can, and then we can work them into a bow. I've kind of just adapted in the middle and said, well, I think we should just hear a kid out, and however they want to start. My son's a straight killer. Like he just wants to kill stuff. So I can go ahead and almost bet he's going to want to start with a rifle because he wants to just start as early as he can. But however, if he says, man, Dad, I just want to do it with a bow, then that's fine, dude. Let's wait. Let's wait a couple years. Or, hey, dude, here's the option of a crossbow. And if that gets him excited and he wants to go out and use a crossbow, so be it. But I am all for hearing the kid out and letting them get into it how they want to get into it. You know, if they want to jump in with a rifle, let them do it. If they want to hold out and do it with a bow, let them do it. But to your point, I don't think the idea of being well-rounded outdoorsman is just lost. Like, I don't think people care about being well-rounded at all. It's just, this is what I like to do, so this is what I do.
Yeah,
dude, I don't like turkey hunting. I don't. That's no secret. If you've listened to this podcast, you know it. I get so many comments about how I'm an idiot for not liking turkey hunting. That's fine. I do it once a year. I want to go out and kill a bird because I want to stay well-rounded in that. You know, I want to be a well-rounded outdoorsman. My idea, the biggest question, when I switched to shooting a recurve, the biggest question I got was, so are you all in? Like, you 100% traditional now? No, because I started shooting a recurve to be more well-rounded, not to be one-sided. I don't want to be traditional only. I want to hunt with a recurve. I want to hunt with a compound. I want to go to Arkansas and hunt with a rifle with my dad. I want to be well-rounded. I want to be well-versed. And so, no, I'm never going to be one-sided. Well, I hope I never become one-sided. Because I enjoy honing a craft and I enjoy woodsman skills. And so I think that's something. So I admire that about you, to say, you know what, I need to do this because I need to be more versed. Because I think that's just kind of lost on the outdoorsman these days.
Yeah, I love like that. That's also one reason I love like the land management side, is I feel like a more well-rounded hunter. And then like also just last year getting in really heavy with muzzle loaders, that was always an intimidating thing. So
it can be
learning that whole thing and like weighing out the powder and doing that whole thing. It was really intimidating learning. But it's been like
It's
a
like being a
whole new
redneck
adventure.
chemist.
Yeah, exactly. And like all the horror stories of like double charges and like I don't know, that just as a hunter, that's kind of the life you live, like the life you choose. But just being well rounded and having like archery, muzzleloader, rifle hunts throughout the year, doing things on your own. It just, I don't know, it's the type of hunter I always strive to be.
Yeah, and I admire that, dude. Like, when's the last time, like, you talk to these big bad, elk hunters, and I'm like, when's the last time you just went out and squirrel hunted? And like, I've never squirrel hunted. I'm like, why not? It'll make you a better elk hunter. Like, if you learn to kill squirrels, it'll make you a better elk hunter. If you learn to go out and bow fish, I'm just trying to think of something. It makes you better in the end. Like last year I went out and coon hunted quite a bit. And it's just funny how like coon hunting made me a better deer hunter. I believe that.
Yeah.
Because you're stalking through the woods and you're hiding in the shadows still, and you're trying to get close to coons. It's going to make you a better woodsman all around. Nighttime coyote hunting, like thermal coyote hunting, you're like, there's no way that has any kind of, but when you're watching deer through thermals and you see how, and you see how they respond to gunshots going off when your buddies are shooting, coyotes at night, like when you see how they respond to those types of things, it makes you understand them more. And so it's just, man, I just encourage everybody, try something new, like do something different. Whether that was bear hunting for me. Like I specifically said, I want to go on a bear hunt just to do something new. That was hog hunting for me. I want to go on a hog hunt just to do something new. And then I learned, I'm like, man, when you start hog hunting, you can really get a lot better at sneaking through the woods because you get so many opportunities to do it on these hogs. So man, I'm a big proponent of being well-rounded and trying new stuff and honing your craft and being a well-rounded woodsman.
Yeah. Every hunt is different and you learn different, like every species gives you a different, like, a different thing to sharpen. Like one thing with turkey hunting is like, it's going to teach you to not move. Turkeys will be on you in a second. It's going to teach you to be still. Same with antelope hunting. Like you like one wrong move and they're a mile away. Elk hunting is going to teach you like, hey, like you can be a little louder walking through, but like your smell is like number one priority. You're like reading the wind is number one priority. Like there's just something different on each, and in each hunt, each situation that you're going to be doing something a little different and it's going to sharpen you a little bit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. So I'm a big proponent of that. And so I admire you for saying, I've never done this, but I need to learn and I need to grow and I need to do it. I need to experience it. That's cool, man. I'm excited to watch all this unfold. I think you guys are going to have a big season and I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah. We'll be dropping a lot of September and some October stuff right away. And then we always save some stuff to drop in the summer. So
now what's your biggest, let's go back real quick. I ask everybody for a tip, a hunting 101 field note or tip or trick. So since the meat of this episode has been about land management, what's your number one land management tip?
I wrote it down actually because I was thinking about it when we were talking about like the 40 acres that we were talking about if you're a new landowner. So many people want their land to just look pristine. They mow it, they'll mulch paths. I'm like, deer, they want it messy. Like be okay with, if you're a land manager, having that messy look, dropping trees, having piles, like just be like, even like I struggle with this a little bit. Like every tree I drop, I want to dice up. I want to stack it. I want to do all this stuff. Just like be okay with the unorganized feel and kind of the messy feel of being a land manager. Cause the deer, they prefer it that way. Like they want, like, sure, like they'll use a path because they're always looking for that least resistance, but like be okay with letting things lay and grow up and look nasty. Cause the wildlife are going to use it that way.
That's awesome, dude. One of the tips that you shared in the beginning that I thought was really good, don't impose your will on it. Like look at the deer and how they want to naturally use it, and then encourage the way they want to naturally use it. But so many guys, they just go in and impose their will on a piece of ground. They're like, oh, dude, food plot here would be dope. The deer don't want a food plot there. Like, that's not how they're naturally using this piece of ground. Or, oh, dude, I'm going to, like you said, brush hog a path through here. Well, that's not the natural path the deer are taking. So if you want to brush hog a path, why not brush hog the path the deer are naturally taking? So I really liked that tip of just back off, man, and watch the deer. See how they want to naturally use the piece of ground before you go in and just impose your will on it. Because so many guys, like if they get a new lease or they get a new piece of ground, they're just like, oh, man, this would be cool to do this right here. But that's not how the deer want it. That's not how they're using it already. So rather than just going in and manhandling a piece of ground, spend a whole year watching the deer and how they want to use it. Where do they want to bed? You know, you said you're putting in bedding. Where do they want to naturally bed before you put that bedding in? Like, that's just a really cool tip in my mind, man, because so many guys just think, well, this is how the deer should have it. So this is what I'm going to do for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other piece I'll just piggyback off of there. When you start making big changes, like we would see how the deer use the ground every year. And then we make changes to to positively affect how they were using it. But we noticed like every single time we do that, they would then do their own, like another different thing. So don't put, if you make some big changes thinking that the deer are going to do this, don't put all your eggs in the same basket, because oftentimes they will see what you've done and they might use it like how you think, but a lot of times they're actually going to do something a little bit different. And we noticed that like we can't wait to get to a stage where we're just like the changes we're doing are just kind of like maintenance. Like we're burning like every year. Those are things that are always going to happen, but like we can't wait for our TSI projects to be done. Like I think we're at a stage where like our food plots are what they're going to always be. But I like when we were adding food plots and doing that stuff, like we saw big movement changes. So once you get to that stage where you're just doing the maintenance stuff and the deer are using it, like no big changes are happening, that's when you really like can focus in and see what those deer are doing the same every year.
So I know that this is a loaded question because it largely depends on what you get, but how far out do you think that is? I mean, for you guys, or how long do you think it takes somebody to invest in a property before they're to a general maintenance?
Yeah, it all depends on the equipment you have access to and kind of the length you wanted. Like we've chosen to do it the labor way. Like we love taking in some chainsaws and hitting the spot for a day or two and moving on to another spot. And I do think being year 4 into this, I think by year 10, at least year 8 to 10, we're going to be like in this cycle where like very, very small changes are happening. Maybe we're burning a new unit or something in the ground. But for the most part, like the TSI is done. So I do think like it's like you can speed up that process, get a Bobcat in there and just really go to town. But as a land manager, your mind never really shuts off. Like it's hard to not go into a year and have a big list of things you want to change. But I do think every property is different, but by that 7 to 10 year range, like you're getting to a point where your property's really like the way you want it.
Yeah. And that's what, so many guys they think they're going to do something and then all of a sudden have that property, like that dream boat deer hunting property that you see on the juries. That's not how it works. It takes years, if not decades, to build that piece of ground into something special, into something, like I have a buddy and I can't wait for him to listen to this episode because he's all into this type of stuff. And I've got a buddy and he's like, I planted X amount of trees. I planted 250 trees. And I'm like, dude, that's, you're looking at 30 years before that even benefits you. And he's like, I know. And I can't wait. And I'm like,
yeah,
see, that's the mindset it takes. Like it takes thinking about things 20 years ahead of time. Like, dude, my kids are going to love hunting this tree row that I just planted.
Definitely.
Like, this is going to change this property forever in 20 years. But that's how you create those properties that are just mind-blowingly good deer hunting properties, of not thinking, 1 year at a time, but thinking the big picture. How can I make this something special?
Yeah. And like most of us average Joes are getting something like 80 acres or smaller too. So just like understanding that the deer are going to use it how they want. They're not like, most of the time you're not having a deer that's living on it. Like a good buck, like you're having a deer that's using the area pretty heavy, but like we're not the Drury's. We don't have the 1,000 acres where you can literally just like, you can keep a deer on your property, like from the time it hits the ground to when you shoot it, when it's 6 years old or whatever. Like most of us don't have that. So like making your property as good as possible, understanding that your property is usually a pass-through property, but you're going to make it the best dang pass-through property they've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's what, like, I tell everybody, like, you have to know I don't want to say the worth of your ground, but so many guys, they want pictures of the 180s and they want to shoot the 180s. And I'm like, but dude, you don't have 180s. Like,
yeah.
So you got to, all you're doing is setting yourself up for disappointment. Like if I go, like when I go home, I hunt every year in Arkansas with my dad. That's where my folks are from. That's where I was born and raised. So I go back home every year and hunt with my dad. Dude, I live in Kansas. And so when I go back to Arkansas, like my expectations drop tremendously. I'm not saying like, well, Dad, I got to wait for the 150, because there ain't going to be a 150 show up. Like that's just not how the state of Arkansas works. Are they there? Do they get killed? Yes. Very rarely. And so you're just setting yourself up for disappointment and failure. So know what you have, know what your property's worth, know what your deer are worth. You can't kill a 180 if there's no 180 in your area, and you have to just accept that. If you want to kill 180, you got to go to where 180s are. That's just the nature of the beast, man. Yeah.
If it's legal, in your state, like run as many cameras as you can. If that's something that you want to do, because like having a small track, there are certain days of the year, during the fall that we know, like, okay, this buck is bedded on our ground. Like he's living here these couple weeks. But like our ground is just not big enough to really keep them on year round. We have a lot of seasonal movement with them. So, we attack when we can and when we know a deer's hanging out, but, that's kind of just how you hunt in a smaller track.
Yeah, well, you just said it. You said run as many cameras as you can. How many acres? I'm sorry, you got 80 acres. How many cameras do you run on 80 acres?
During the season, we'll run 10 to 12 cells and a couple non-cells. So
it's exactly what I was going to say, because so many guys are like, well, I've got 80 acres. So if I put a camera up here, if the deer are here, I'm going to see them. I'm like, oh, dude, you're so far from the truth.
It is unbelievable, dude. We'll have deer that only hang in the north 10 acres and won't touch the bottom 7. Yeah. I'm like, if we didn't have a camera there, we'd have no idea that deer exists. It's nuts. Dude, I've got a place, and it's literally only 5 acres. Only 5 acres. Now, it's in the middle of Kansas, and it's 5 acres of timber surrounded by corn, wheat, whatever's planted. So it's really good, but it's only 5 acres. I literally told I'm like, there's no way. Like, if I put a camera up here, I'm going to see every deer that's on this 5 acres. Like, it's 5 acres, dude. You could throw a rock across it. But sure enough, dude, like, one year I put a camera up here and I just had deer like crazy. I move it to the south end of the property and I'm like, I'm going to hunt here. It's a little easier to access. It's a little better. I had like 3 deer move through there. I'm like, what the heck? Well, it's crazy. They didn't come there. They just, do you know the Holders much at all? Warren Holder, David Holder, those guys raised hunting. Yeah. So Warren is really passionate about deer zones, if you will. And how, like,
I can have a camera here and see the deer every day, but if I move it, 100 yards, I might not ever see that buck on camera again because that deer just stops right there. That's just his zone. He doesn't go further than that. So yeah, man, however many cameras you can afford, put them up. Like that's my tip, dude, because
definitely
it's amazing how you just don't see the deer. Like you would think, well, man, it's only 100-yard difference. Like from here to there, it's only 100 yards, but it can make all the difference in the deer you see and the deer you get pictures of. And it's crazy, man.
Yeah. For some reason, they just use every deer wants to go somewhere different than the next deer. So I don't know. They all use it different.
I've also had different sides of tree rows like be different. Like you would think this tree row, man, whichever way I point it, I'm going to have the deer. But for some reason, they're always on the east side of the tree row rather than the west side of the tree row. And so like you just, man, run cameras, a lot of cameras. That's my, or have a lot of boots on the ground. I mean, if you live on the piece of ground, so like my in-laws, I don't have to run as many cameras there just because they're always on the ground. So they can give me so much intel as to what's happening. So, but yeah, in my opinion, you can never have too many cameras. Never.
Yeah. We live by the same rule. And it seems like the giant bucks are always showing up on the non-sales. So
yeah, that's how it goes too.
That's how it goes for us.
Buddy, they're smart.
Yeah.
Guys, I oftentimes say that I always have a binocular harness on my chest. What good is a binocular harness without a good set of binoculars? I am a sucker for fine Japanese glass. I love good optics. I love spending time behind it. It's just fun. It's fun to go out and look at stuff, but also good optics make spotting and looking through them a whole lot more enjoyable. Kowa Optics does it and does it better than anyone else, in my opinion. They have some of the finest Japanese glass on planet Earth. It's all I've used for the past, 8 years or so. This right here, the Kowa 55, is one of the best products ever made in the history of the universe. It is the smallest, most compact scope you can get, but it still offers phenomenal glass. It's really hard to find a spotter that is this small, this light, this compact. You can throw it in your backpack. You can leave it in your truck. It's so small and so compact, but it still offers phenomenal glass. This is one of my favorite products ever. Guys, if you're in the market for new optics, I would highly encourage you to check out Kowa Optics because they are, in my opinion, the best glass that you can buy. Go check them out. Thomas, where can they find you guys at? Which, by the way, guys, every time I've had them on, I've said this. They put out some of the best content in the outdoor industry. So if you're not following Identical Draw, you absolutely need to be because the quality of their content is unreal. So where can they find you guys at? Where can they watch you at?
Appreciate that. We post our videos on YouTube, and then a lot of what we do is we create content for other businesses. So we post more of that stuff on our Instagram, I'd say. So YouTube and Instagram are a heavy place to find. It's just at Identical Draw.
Pretty easy.
Yep.
Pretty easy to find them, guys. I would highly encourage you to. They're awesome. They put out great content on land management, on the things they're doing to better their deer. So make sure and go follow Identical Draw and stay tuned for these incredible recurve projects we're going to be working on because you're going to want to see them, I promise. Guys, thank you so much for listening. You guys have a fantastic week.